dun da da dun da da dun better dun better dun 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 dun. Back in black. I hit the sack. I'm glad to be back with the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Welcome back, everyone, to this is our week 2 review show, and what a week 2 we had of college football across the nation, across this great land. Especially, don't forget that it also marked the anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, 20 years, so gave us even more reason to celebrate this great nation, and what better way to do that with college football. Welcome back. I'm coming to you live. I am your host, representing the black and gold of Iowa and the black and gold of the Missouri Tigers and our Iowa Hawkeyes, Blair Parks, coming to you live from the man cave again. Whew, what a weekend. And it's great to have you back with us. The black and gold family, we are slowly increasing. Feel free, help us get the word out there. Like, share, subscribe. Anything you can do to help us, I would absolutely appreciate it, because I am here to serve. I am here to share my passion of all things college football with you and yours. So welcome back. Woo! Once again, what a action-packed weekend we had, as Mickey would say, from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Now, if you recall, if you watched the Week 2 preview show last week, I dubbed Saturday, Week 2, as Show Me Saturday, and I was shown plenty. Let's just put it this way. To make a good analogy, if you recall, there was a lot of questions that were left unanswered for me after Week 1, but let's just say the beginning of the day on Saturday, I was well supplied with beads, and now I am completely out of them. I was shown plenty. All right, so what we got on tap for you today, I think it's going to be a great show, maybe the best episode we've ever done, even though I say that every week. And once again, I am saying we, because unfortunately, my co-host, Charlie Oswalt, who represents the Missouri Tigers black and gold, I will be sitting in for him. He is unavailable to join us today. Wow, what a week. What a weekend we had. And this is going to be the greatest show ever, I promise, even though I say that every week. So on today's show, I have 6 topics that I want to discuss and share with you. Now, today might be a little extended. This episode, I am going to absolutely discuss and talk more in depth about one of the black and golds, which, not trying to be a Homer Simpson, it definitely is deserved and needed, because one of our black and golds absolutely made a lasting impression on the entire college football landscape over the weekend. So I'm going to take that opportunity to share that with you and share the limelight with one of our black and gold teams. What we have lined up today, as normal, our first topic will be storylines and headlines. Then after that, I will share with you the updated AP poll following Saturday's action. Then I'm going to share with you some quick initial thoughts on Week 2. Then we'll move into the Week 2 pick'em results. I will let you know how both myself and Charlie did with our Week 2 picks. And then we will move into the good, the bad, and the ugly from Show Me Saturday, Week 2. So let's dive right in, shall we? So our first topic is storylines and headlines, and I have a few to share with you today. As reported last week, if you recall, that it was pretty much cemented that BYU was going to be extended an invitation to join the Big 12 Conference. It also was reported that Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston also were expected to get official invitations to join the conference. And if you recall, that is something that this guy right here did prognosticate a week before, that hey, if you're going to invite BYU, which was the initial report, I said, why not feel free to invite these three to join you, being UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati, and that has come to fruition. Those four schools have officially been invited to join the Big 12 Conference, and they have accepted. So the Big 12 Conference lives and plays on. And as of now, it is to be determined when they will officially join the Big 12 for athletic competitions. As soon as that year or season becomes set in stone and decided upon, I will definitely share that with you. But well done by the Commissioner Bob Bowlesby. And the commish also, in his remarks, when asked about adding these four teams, said that in the future, additional expansion may not be out of the question. But as of right now, they are done expanding for the here and now. So, excellent additions. I think this gives the Big 12 a very solid conference where you add some good brands and some very good, solid football teams. So well done. Golf clap to you, Big 12. You live to play another day. Excellent. Our next storyline or headline comes from a game, it should not have been a close game. Excuse me there, another on-screen gaffe. From the Texas A&M at Colorado game. Now, this game should not have been close, but Texas A&M did escape Denver by the hair of their chinny chin chins with a 10-7 victory. Now, before we jump to conclusions, this is why this storyline or headline is coming to you, why I'm sharing it with you, that the Texas A&M starting quarterback, his name is Haynes King, left early, actually I think it was late in the first quarter, never returned. Backup quarterback came in, looked very inept at time. Not much offense in this game, and quite frankly, Colorado probably should have walked away with the victory, and I will discuss this game and the state of the union for Texas A&M, so to speak, later in this episode. But Haynes King left with an injury. Apparently it was a lower leg, and on Monday, after evaluation, it is a lower leg fracture. They're expecting him back sometime mid-season, which should be mid to late October, but this timetable can change either before or after. Now, what does that really mean for Texas A&M? Obviously, I already mentioned their offense looked very ineffective, putting it lightly. This is a family show. I could use other words, but I choose not to right now. But Texas A&M was a top 5 team before this weekend, and they were expected to challenge Alabama for the SEC West title this year. And by the looks of things, Haynes King will not make it back to that matchup at home against Alabama, which I believe was week. I know it's October 9th is the date. I just want to try to get my week 6. So he definitely will not be back for that big week 6 matchup against Alabama, which this is definitely something that could affect me, but we have no control over these things. During my crystal ball episode, one of my predictions was I do believe, and it still could happen, that's why you play the games, that one of Nick Saban's former assistants would score a victory against him this year. Still could happen. That was really the one that I was eyeballing. Will be a tough task now with this starting quarterback, but he does have some time to get more comfortable, take more of the first team reps. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out on the field. But not just that matchup, but now 2 weeks from this weekend, week 4, they have a neutral site matchup with an upstart Arkansas team that may or may not have joined the AP poll this week. That'll be next. They play at Jerry World. Ooh, this is going to be a tough matchup now. This becomes a huge, difficult matchup for Texas A&M in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, Alabama. And then the week after the big Alabama showdown, they travel to our Missouri Tigers, which I already, during our season breakdown of Missouri and Iowa, I already picked preseason that Missouri would get that team at home. That would be Missouri's signature win for the year. Looks like it could even be a little bit easier now with their starting quarterback potentially out for that matchup at Columbia as well. So stay tuned. We'll find out the answers. And I guess also something I did mention last week too during our headline segment that Jimbo Fisher is going to get his raise on January 1st of 2022, up from $7.5 million to $9 million. So Jimbo Fisher, now you're going to have to earn that check. This is where you can justify getting paid the big bucks, and where fans and proponents or opponents would say, nope, this is why we're justifying not earning those kind of dollars. So we'll see how this plays out on the field and along the sidelines for Texas A&M. Late storyline that I added last night when I was getting everything together for the show today. Off the wire on Monday night. It has finally happened. The wait is over. I did forecast this happening at USC, but never could I have imagined it would happen in week 2. Finally, Clay Helton is no longer on the hot seat, the coach at the USC Trojans, because he has now officially been fired after a very disappointing loss on Show Me Saturday, week 2, to Stanford at home at the Coliseum. They have decided to pull the plug on the Clay Helton project. I definitely will mention this game later on in this episode, so breaking news, but it's not a surprise. Definitely a surprise happening after week 2, but sayonara Clay Helton. We'll have to wait and see where USC goes from here. So that is our headlines and storylines for the week. Now, to set up the rest of this episode, because there were huge developments on the field with the scores from week 2 on Show Me Saturday. To kind of set that up, I am going to summarize where some of these teams are, and then I will share with you how they got there. So that's why I've chosen to go into the next topic, being the updated AP poll after week 2's action. So we have some updates on this. Let me give you those who are making their initial debuts to the AP poll. We have Arkansas, big win, big-time win over Texas at home. BYU, who won the Civil War. I did not see that coming. They took care of Utah in Provo. And big win for BYU. I thought this team would potentially struggle. I still don't believe they'll match last year's win total with losing the top 5 draft pick and QB Zach Wilson, but a huge win for their program. And also, BYU had lost the last 9 meetings in the Holy War against the Utah Utes. So big win. BYU cracks the rankings. And also, Michigan. Now, this Michigan team took care of Washington at home on the ABC primetime game. So they make their debut in this week's AP poll as well. And this Michigan team, I'm still having a really hard time reading and seeing where they are, but this team really does scare me. I've said it, under the radar, no expectations this year, totally revamped coaching staff. Coach Jim Harbaugh took a pay decrease to the tune of $4 million in the offseason. Maybe this is the Michigan team that can shock the world this year. We'll have to wait and see. Our movers and shakers. So this week, let's talk about the teams that moved up. The biggest gainer was Oregon. Oregon went into Columbus, people, something that I thought they would not do. And this was our spotlight game of the weekend. Definitely will share more from this game. But Oregon moved up 8 spots in the AP poll. And the other big-time mover was our Iowa Hawkeyes. The black and gold scored a huge victory on the road at number 9, Iowa State. Took care of business, and they moved up 5 spots as well in the AP poll. Another big mover was the Virginia Tech Hokies, who had a convincing win at home against maybe lower competition in Middle Tennessee State. They moved up 4 spots in the AP poll. Now the big droppers in the AP poll. Ohio State was ranked number 3. They have now dropped 6 spots in the AP poll after losing at home to the Oregon Ducks. And the Iowa State Cyclones, after losing to the aforementioned Iowa Hawkeyes, our Hawkeyes, they dropped 5 spots in the AP poll. So let me share the poll with you now. Number 25 is Michigan. 24 is Miami, which quite frankly, I look at this team, there is no rhyme or reason to me why they still should be ranked. They got absolutely devoured by Alabama in week 1, 44-13, I believe the final score was. And they held on to beat a game Appalachian State Mountaineers squad, which I did kind of highlight during our week 2 preview show on Thursday. They held on to beat Appalachian State by 2 points. Appy State had the ball late, but the Miami defense turned them back basically at midfield when a potential field goal attempt could have got them the victory. So Miami did drop 2 spots, but quite frankly, justifying them being ranked at this point, I don't see the knowledge in that. Number 23 is BYU after that win over Utah. Auburn stays pretty clean. They are undefeated, ranked number 22. And number 21 is the North Carolina Tar Heels, kind of a get-right game over the weekend. Remember, they got upset on the road at Virginia Tech during week 1. So pretty good bounce-back win for the Tar Heels. Number 20 is Arkansas. Now, Arkansas put it on the Texas Longhorns, which definitely going to give you more feedback from this game later in the episode as well. They are here at number 20, making their debut. Number 19, Arizona State, the Sun Devils, hanging tough. Wisconsin, kind of a get-right game. They beat up on Eastern Michigan. They're number 18. Number 17 is the Ole Miss Rebels. Matt Corral looking really solid. That offense is clicking. Definitely look like they're in mid-season form. It's going to be a tough team to beat in the SEC. They're at number 17. Number 16 is the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Took care of a surprisingly game Kansas squad on Friday night. They're number 16. Number 15 is the Virginia Tech Hokies. 14 is Iowa State. They dropped from number 9 to 14 after losing at home, after losing the Cy-Hawk Trophy yet again, 6th time in a row to my Iowa Hawkeyes. And kind of a side note, 6 straight losses. These so-called trophy games of Iowa, it's tough for them to they're taking up permanent residence, I believe, now in Iowa City, other than the Heartland Trophy, which Iowa plays Wisconsin for that trophy every year. That's the one that's been tough to obtain and keep hold on. They have it right now after their victory last year against Wisconsin, but they now have defeated Iowa State 6 straight years, so they've kept the Cy-Hawk Trophy. They've defeated Minnesota. They play every year for the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy, my favorite trophy. That has been in residency in Iowa City for 6 straight years as well. And also, they play Nebraska on Black Friday for the Heroes Trophy. That has also been in Iowa's possession for 6 years. So 3 of their 4 rivals, 6 straight victories. Getting it done, Hawkeyes. So Iowa State, number 14. UCLA had an off week, undefeated, number 13. Still a very solid UCLA squad. Notre Dame, big-time dropper. Oh boy, they are playing with fire, Scarecrow. They check in at number 12. I have more on this game later as well. Number 11, Florida, is just outside the top 10. Have a huge matchup this weekend in week 3. The spotlight game this week will be number 1, Alabama, traveling to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. Now the top 10. Top 10, number 10 is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Look really good. Penn State may be the most balanced team in the nation. I'll talk more about Penn State later on during my power rankings segment in this episode. Number 9, Ohio State. Dropped from number 3 to number 9. Very, very stellar offense. may even be the best offense in the nation, but defense, we got to get right after following their loss to Oregon. Number 8 is Cincinnati. Cincinnati is the highest ranked non-Power 5 opponent. Getting it done. They have a huge game this week, kind of a prove-it game. They travel to Indiana, and we'll talk more about that game later this week. Number 7 is Texas A&M. They drop a couple spots after that escape from New York, or escape from Denver, against Colorado, as I already kind of talked a little bit about. Number 6 is Clemson, so they stay in the top 10. They have a get-right game. They beat up, I believe they played South Carolina State, I believe. And number 5 is our Iowa Hawkeyes. After that huge win, they moved from number 10 to number 5. Very dominant win, and I absolutely am going to discuss that game later this episode. Oregon goes from number 12 to number 4 after that huge win on the road at Columbus. Number 3 is Oklahoma. They stay where they were in last week's poll. Georgia, number 2, and then Alabama. So at the top, pretty much status quo. So those who were dropped from the rankings, we had 3 teams that were dropped. USC, which ultimately led to the firing of Clay Helton, losing to Stanford, dropped from the rankings. Also Utah, a Utah team that I am still very high on. I picked them to win the Pac-12 South Division. Hopefully they can right the ship there. But then Texas. Woo! Pig suey. We'll be talking about this game, like I said, shortly. But just to give you a little precursor of what this game looked like on the field. What Arkansas did to them is it reminds me of the scene from Animal House with Kevin Bacon bending over in the frat house during his initiation. Whap-ap! Thank you, sir, may I have another? Whap-ap! Thank you, sir, may I have another? That was exactly what the Arkansas rush attack did to Texas. Woo, I can't wait to get to that game. But that's kind of what it reminded me of, what was going on the field on Saturday night down in Fayetteville. So that is our updated AP poll. And the only shocker that I see, the only thing that I would like to see changed, I mentioned it, was Miami. I don't believe they should be ranked. I think Liberty or TCU should be, at this point, in the top 25. But that's our updated AP poll. So what I want to move into next, the next topic of today, I'm going to go ahead and get a quick swig of water if you don't mind. Hold on one second. My initial thoughts after watching and what transpired from week 2, from Show Me Saturday, is embrace the parody, people. This is what we are looking at right now. We're only 2 weeks into this college football season. Most teams have only played 2 games. Some have played 3 if they did participate in the week 0 that we had. But for so long now, we have all complained and even bitched so much about, why do we watch this movie when we know how it's going to end? Meaning, it's going to be 3 of 6 teams are going to get into the playoff, and then the 4th could be that wild card. And that is exactly what I shared, I believe, during episode 1, that I am one of those who is absolutely sick and tired of this. The 6 teams, of these 6 teams being, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Oklahoma. Of those 6 teams, at least 3 will get into the playoff every year to this point, when the 4th could be, like I said, the wild card. I mean, 2 years ago it was LSU. Before them, Washington got in 1 year, as did Michigan State. But last year, all 4 of them, all 4 of those 6 teams got in. So I am sick and tired. I am one of those who wants some fresh perspective. I want some new blood, new faces, as do most people. So right now, embrace this. Clemson and Ohio State have losses after week 2. It is going to be difficult for them to make the playoff, especially the way their teams look on the field. And just to, tell you that somebody did forecast this is how this season was going to play out. Because I remember I did not have either Clemson or Ohio State in my playoff then during the predictions episode, which was episode 4 earlier this month. Those two teams were not one of the 4 that I picked to participate in the college football playoff. So as of right now, I'm looking pretty damn good for that anyway. But yes, the parody, it's here. Embrace this. Those two juggernauts have losses. Oregon is number 4 in the nation, just in Iowa. Our Hawkeyes are number 5. Embrace the change, people. This is what you've been waiting for, this breath of fresh air. And who knows, the way things have played out this year, what if, just what if, I'm not picking it. Watch Thursday, either the week 3 preview will be out either Thursday afternoon, possibly Friday morning. I'm not picking this game. You'll have to wait and see until then. But what if Florida does knock off Alabama this Saturday down in Gainesville? What if the number 1 team, not just in the poll, but and everyone believes they're the best, and they probably are, as of right now anyway, what if they lose too? What if after 3 weeks, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson all have a loss? Think about that. The chaos. I love it. I want it. So embrace the parody, people. Several other power programs, and embracing this, listen to this. Several power programs, most of these were ranked to start the season in week 1, have at least 1 loss. Listen to some of these programs, not just Clemson and Ohio State, but Iowa State, who was ranked number 7 to start the year. North Carolina, who was ranked number 10, lost. They're still ranked, but they have an early season loss. Wisconsin, losing in week 1 at home against Penn State. Miami, who shouldn't be ranked, but got absolutely decimated by Alabama. USC, losing to Stanford. They're out of the rankings. LSU, losing their opening game at UCLA, now find themselves unranked. The national champion of 2 years ago. Indiana, who was supposed to potentially challenge Ohio State for the Big Ten East crown, got absolutely dominated by Iowa. They're no longer ranked. Texas, and we'll get to that game here in a little bit, no longer ranked after taking it right here to Arkansas on Saturday night. Washington, who was ranked there, 0-2. They don't have a victory. And my Utah Utes, after losing to BYU, find themselves with 1 loss and not ranked. So this is what we want as the college football fan. Unless you're a fan of those teams, I sympathize with you. I understand that. But if you're not a fan of those usual suspects, the power players, embrace this. Enjoy it while it lasts, because it may not. Iowa could fall flat this week, and so could Oregon. We don't know. Stranger things have happened. But embrace and enjoy this. This is what we have wanted. I need to go ahead and give a shout out and a golf clap to some unusual suspects. Some of these, there's a lot of teams that are 2-0 that no one expected. Some of these would be, these are kind of what I call the Texas Rangers or the Texas Strangers of college football. Listen to some of these names. Arkansas is 2-0. They've kind of been the whipping boy of the SEC the last few years. They had some tough times. They're undefeated after week 2. Out of the ACC, both Boston College, very, very good Boston College team, by the way, and Wake Forest are both 2-0. That doesn't happen every season or every day. Out of the Big 12, Texas Tech is 2-0. And even though they're not undefeated, Kansas has a win. They're 1-1 after week 2. I got to give them some props. Out of the Pac-12, UCLA, who has been down, and then down some more under Chip Kelly until this season is 2-0. Out of the Big Ten, listen to these two names who are undefeated in the Big Ten. Maryland and Rutgers. That's right. The Scarlet Knights under Greg Schiano. They're 2-0. They went on the road during Show Me Saturday week 2 and got a victory in the Carrier Dome at Syracuse. That's a good win. Huge, especially for recruiting for that region between New York and New Jersey. The American Athletic, Memphis, SMU, both 2-0. Good, solid teams. Conference USA, Charlotte, the 49ers, during week 1 knocked off Duke, if you recall, and I shared that with you when you watched. That was their first ever victory over a Power 5 opponent. The 49ers are 2-0, and so is UTSA, the Roadrunners, who went to Illinois on week 1, took care of the Fighting Illini. They're 2-0 with their great running back, Sincere McCormick. The Mountain West, I gotta spread the love. The Mountain West has a couple teams that are good to go. The Mountain West, Utah State, the Aggies. New Mexico, the Lobos, both those teams are 2-0. So is Nevada, the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack, I believe they went to Cal and won on week 1. What a victory. And then out of the Sun Belt, and we all know the Sun Belt plays good football. Coastal is undefeated, but we expected that. They started the year ranked, and they're still ranked. Louisiana took a tough loss to Texas on week 1. So there's good football in the Sun Belt, but the South Alabama Jaguars are 2-0. Excellent job to the unusual suspects to be 2-0 out of the gate. Keep it up. We're cheering for you loudly. Another thing that I have to, this is another thing, the parody. I love that. Maybe I should have just called this, maybe I'll just call this right now on the spot. This episode is parody. How about that? So when you search parody or week 2 review. The FCS mania continues. They scored not just 1, but 2 multiple victories again this past weekend against Division I foes. What I got here, Duquesne goes on the road, and they took care of the Ohio Bobcats at Ohio, but a big one, a earth shaker, earth mover, which I'll get to later on in this episode. Jacksonville State goes to Florida State, the Florida State team that was the toast of the town, and what a great story it was following week 1 Sunday night with Mackenzie Milton coming back to play, brings them back from defeat, gets to overtime, but they lose in heartbreaking fashion to Notre Dame. Yes, that Florida State squad that we thought was back. They lost at home to FCS Jacksonville State. Well done, FCS. Keep it up. We love this. Oh, this is great. Good stuff. The parody that is happening after week 2 is absolutely monumental. We've seen nothing like this in this great sport for as long as I can remember watching. And I've been a fan, and I just turned 40 last year. I'm a man, I'm 40. Hopefully you remember that rant by the Oklahoma State coach, Gundy. I'm a man, I'm 40. So I can remember watching 30 years worth of college football at this point. And I've never seen a season start like this. Refreshing, absolutely love it. Let's keep it up. Now, what the next topic I'm going to move into, I'm going to share with you. After 2 weeks of football, I'm going to start doing this every review show on either Monday or Tuesdays. My updated power rankings, how I see the best teams in college football right now. I will share with you my top 10 plus 2. So the 12 best teams that I have seen right now and reasons why. Let's start off with number 1, Alabama. No surprise, Alabama, to me, this is why I have them at number 1, and most of these do mimic the current AP poll, but not all. To me, Alabama they've scored the most complete victory of the year over Miami, 44-13 in week 1. I mean, they excel on every facet of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, everything. I mean, they are already at the end of season form. My number 2 on my power rankings, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia, absolutely to me, they have the most impressive victory. Remember, they were able to beat number 3, Clemson, on opening night in the battle of those 2 top 5 teams. And Georgia, I think they may have the best defense in the entire nation, but I do believe one team can maybe say, we are going to have something to say about that. So Georgia, number 2. Number 3, I've got Oklahoma. I just think that they're holding steady, but I still think they might be a little overrated. We'll have to wait and see what happens. How does Iowa State pull themselves up off the mat? Can they be game to maybe take down the Sooners? Because Texas does not look like they are ready to contend for the Big 12. So all the people who were saying that Texas is back, after 1 week, stop it. Just let's not go there again. Number 4, I've got Oregon. Oregon, absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead and mention these 2 teams together because Oregon and UCLA. And UCLA I have number 8 in my power rankings because their victories, they resonate and they are the biggest statement victories of anybody else, especially for their conference that has been down and out, not respected, been made fun of, couldn't get to the adult table, was always relegated to the child's table. I mean, UCLA's win over LSU in week 1 resonated enough, but with Oregon going to Ohio State over the weekend, even louder. So those 2 teams have the biggest statement victories. That's why I have Oregon number 4 and UCLA number 8. Number 5 is Iowa. Now, before some of you say, oh, what a homer, like this guy's really, he's not showing any favoritism. Right now, Iowa has the best resume of any team in the nation. Iowa has opened up and soundly defeated not 1, but 2 ranked opponents, 1 being a top 10 on the road. So who else has defeated 2 ranked opponents? Exactly. The answer's nobody. Iowa right now has the best resume of any squad, validating me having them number 5 on my power rankings, but we'll see if it lasts. Ohio State, I have them number 6 on my power ratings because I am not ready to give up on this squad. Absolutely, I think they have the most impressive offense in the nation. It's very prolific. It's quick strike. They will never be out of any game. But their defense, they need to right the ship. They're in Columbus, but I have them right now holding on at number 6. Number 7, I have Clemson. Clemson, very good, bounce back win over week 2, but I still don't know about their offense. Their defense is prolific. Under D.C. Venables, we know what we're going to get. Their quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, is an absolute gamer, but can his offensive line help him, protect him, and keep him upright? And can they get something out of their rushing attack? We'll have to wait and see. So I have Clemson number 7. Number 8, I do have UCLA, as I mentioned earlier during this segment, just because of how physical they are. And they were off week 2, and this week coming up, they'll have a tough task. They host a very game Fresno State Bulldog team that absolutely crushed UConn, which I know isn't saying much, during week 0. And then they went to Oregon, went toe-to-toe with the Ducks, and lost by a touchdown in Eugene on week 1. So potentially Fresno State could maybe give them a little bit of a game. We'll have to wait and see. Tune in later this week for more on that game. See if that makes our pick segment. Number 9, I'm going to mention these 2 teams together as well. Texas A&M and Notre Dame. These 2 teams are absolutely limping. They're hurting. They are on their 9th life if they were cats. I mean, basically the Walking Dead. I mean, that's a good way to describe these 2 teams. I have them still ranked because they started very highly ranked, but Texas A&M, their offense, now with this backup quarterback in there, can they right the ship? They've got some big games coming up, as I mentioned earlier this episode, with Arkansas right around the corner, then Alabama, then at Missouri. Notre Dame looked very pedestrian. Toledo, the Rockets, should have gone to South Bend over the weekend and defeated them. They took a late lead, did Toledo, but they left Notre Dame too much time. Notre Dame drove the field with under a minute and a half to go, and I think it was actually under 2 minutes, and they defeated Toledo 32-29. this is the same Notre Dame squad that we were talking so highly about after their Week 1 win at Florida State in overtime. But I just told you that Jacksonville State just went to Florida State and won. So that definitely makes that victory by the Irish, the Fighting Irish, lose some luster and definitely some flavor and some meaning. Absolutely. So these two teams, they are absolutely on the brink. And I expect that they will get losses very soon. And this might be the last time that we see them in my power rankings. But The Walking Dead, that really is a good analogy. Maybe we just need Daryl Dixon to come along and put them out of their misery, crossbow and all, or hell, even Michonne and her samurai sword, or even Negan and Lucille. That's what these two teams, I think, need, and that is inevitable, going to happen soon. So A&M, right now I have number 9. Number 10, Penn State. And this Penn State squad, they look very balanced. Defense looks like the real deal. Offense, they're scoring at a pretty good clip. Sean Clifford, so far anyway, is definitely slinging the ball a little bit more consistently. That was my main hang-up with Penn State, was I just didn't know how consistent he was going to be at QB. And they're going to have every opportunity to move up. They host an undefeated Auburn team in Week 3, so they potentially could move up. My first team out, number 11, I have Cincinnati. And I like this squad. I just need to see them play maybe a little bit better competition. And they're going to have an opportunity to move up or move down with a loss if that happens. This week they do travel to Bloomington, Indiana to take on a very game Indiana Hoosier squad. And then Notre Dame, like I mentioned. And Notre Dame, they have potential to move up, I suppose, just like A&M does. But they need to be careful. They have a potential, what kind of game this weekend, Admiral Akbar? It's a trap at home against Purdue. Because Week 4, the Irish go to Chicago to play Wisconsin at Soldier Field. Maybe they're looking ahead. Maybe not. Maybe this team is just going to struggle. So that's my power rankings at the end of Week 2. Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Oregon, Iowa, Ohio State, Clemson, UCLA, Texas A&M, Penn State, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. Wow. So we're just going to have to see what happens with our power rankings at the conclusion. Stay with us. Check back next week during our Week 3 review, and I will give you my updated power rankings. Woo! Now, a little bit better result this past week. Let's move in now. Our next topic is, let's see how my Week 2 pick'em results went. Now, Week 1, was not kind to me. I was 8-7 after Week 1, and if you missed it, both myself and Charlie, and I also have Charlie's results. He gave me his picks before Week 2 kicked off. We're basically going to have a competition every week, and then at the end of the season, we are going to create a little traveling trophy. So we have a competition going on, but also we will both like to be at 70% for the season. That's kind of what we set as our Mendoza line, but I would prefer to be near 75%. I still got some work to do with that. So after Week 1, I went 8-7. Charlie went 10-6. But Week 2, we definitely missed a good number of games, but so did the vast majority of so-called experts and analytical types, journalists, sports writers. We both missed the Iowa State-Iowa game. We both picked the Cyclones to win. We both missed Ohio State-Oregon. We both had the Buckeyes to win that game, which most people did. So there was some chaos this past weekend. Overall, I went 8-7, and Charlie, bringing up the rear, went 6-9. I was at 53% again this week. Right now it's 16-14 on the season, right at 53%. Charlie went 40%. Yikes, Charlie, for Week 2. He's also at 16-14 is the score at 53%. So we have a dead tie right now after 2 weeks of football. But the week's champion is this guy right here, back on top where he belongs. Oh, you mean sleep? Sleep over? Okay, well, I get to be on top. Oh, so that's where we are after our week 2 picks. And just to kind of, let's circle back to where my potential, what Admiral Akbar again? The traps. I had 3 trap games that I shared with you on Thursday's week 2 preview episode. Nebraska was able to take care of Buffalo. I thought maybe the Buffs could go in there and knock them off as they looked ahead to this week's matchup at Oklahoma. Penn State took care of Ball State very handedly. I thought maybe they'd be looking ahead to hosting Auburn this week. South Carolina, I thought they would get potentially upset on the road at the East Carolina Pirates. Yar! Almost happened. South Carolina converted a field goal as time expired. Walk-off 17-14 victory for the Gamecocks over the Pirates. So almost got that one right. Thought they'd be looking ahead to this week's matchup in Athens against Georgia. So I was close, but no cigar with my trap games. Later this week, I'll share with you my picks and my potential trap games for week 3. Oh, man, what a great episode. Now, feel free, at any given time, feel free, comment, like, share. Whatever comments you share with me, I would love to share them on the air, try to get you on the air, and to prove that, this week, Charlie and I are going to welcome a guest picker. I almost said celebrity guest picker like they would on College Game Day, but to me, he is a celebrity. My friend Brett is going to be joining me. I'm going to get his picks from him and a few sentences of why he likes this team over that team. Brett lives in the Chicagoland area. He's been a loyal Touchdown Black and Gold vlog watcher, viewer from the start. So feel free. Show us that you like us. You want us around, share, like, comment. I'll do what I can to get you on. So, can't wait. And Brett and I, we have to make a little side bet here of what the loser is going to do. We need to hash this out off camera. All right. So the last segment. Well, before I move into my last topic of the day, because the last topic, I am going to speak a little more in depth and longer about the black and gold of our Iowa Hawkeyes after their huge win, vaulting them up to number 5 in the nation. But before that, I am going to talk about the other black and gold that we dissect in this vlog, the Missouri Tigers. M-I-Z-Z-O-U. Missouri had a very tough matchup on Saturday night. They traveled to a very gritty, tough Kentucky Wildcat team, and unfortunately, they did come out on the wrong end of the scoreboard. Lexington, Kentucky continues to be a house of horrors. They now have lost 5 straight matchups at Kentucky. But watching this game as it unfolded, I was very proud of Missouri's showing. And I think you Missouri fans with us, you should walk away feeling very good about this squad. I personally, yes, I am not one of those who believes a loss is a loss, but you definitely can take away the good and the bad from any loss, just like any win. There's always things that you can improve on or take away from saying, hey, we definitely did this well, or we need to work on this. Definitely was a cat fight. You see what I did there? Tigers, Wildcats. Definitely was a cat fight there on Saturday night in Lexington. Definitely it continues to be a snake pit for Mizzou. And final score was 35-28, Kentucky. Down 21-7 at one point. Mizzou could have packed it in for the night, started the bus early, started thinking about this week's get-right game against Southeast Missouri, but they did not. Showed a lot of fight, a lot of grit, a lot of pride, and pushed them to the limit. But it came down to this, and if you've watched previous episodes, both Charlie and I shared with you that Missouri's biggest weakness from last season that we were most concerned about was their defensive line. And they were absolutely gouged and gashed by the Kentucky running game of Rodriguez and my boy Cavassier Smoke to the tune of 337 total rushing yards to Kentucky. That's a lot of yards on the ground. It came down to that. Missouri could not stop the run, but Kentucky could not stop the pass attack of Missouri. That is what kept them in the game. Connor Bazelak had a very impressive showing on the road. Hostile environment. I can't remember the last time seeing a crowd that wild that was on display there in Lexington. It's been a while since they've had that kind of an atmosphere at Lexington. But his numbers, he threw for 297 yards and a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 touchdowns to 1 pick. Very good game for Connor Bazelak. Tyler Beatty was all over the place. He has become their most versatile weapon on the offensive side of the ball. Talked with Charlie after that game late Saturday night, and he kind of agrees with me. Now I'm not saying Tyler Beatty's going to go on to be a Hall of Famer. I'm just making the analogy kind of a little bit like Marshall Faulk for all those years you played in the NFL. Marshall was a solid runner and a solid pass catcher out of the backfield, but didn't really excel at either one of those. That's kind of Tyler Beatty. He doesn't specialize in one. He does both things very well, but not one better than the other. So they will definitely continue to utilize him. I just hope they find a chance to give him some downtime, a little bit of a rest this week against SEMO. They should not need him late in the game. Should be a get-right, put-away game early, and you're going to need to rest him. But I'm very excited. I still think Missouri is going to have a very good season. I picked them to lose this game. Charlie picked them to win on the road. It really did resonate. It does resonate very well, though, for Missouri and you fans watching of the Tigers, because they're going to have every opportunity to have a very good season. I mean, right now with A&M and offensive flux transition, I still already picked them to beat A&M before that injury, and they're going to have every opportunity to beat them in a few weeks. Tennessee comes to town, and late in the season, we don't really know a lot about Florida yet. I mean, we'll know more after this weekend's matchup when they host Alabama, but they're going to have several chances for some good wins and signature victories this season. So I expect good things out of them. I still think this year sets up next year for Missouri. Next year, I believe they will be ready to rock and roll to be contenders for the SEC East. If things keep going the way they're going, if they keep trending the way they're trending, they're in Columbia. All right. So, our final topic of this episode, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Wah, 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 wah. And let's start with the good, or the Blondie of this. Love that movie. Just thinking about this because over the weekend, the family and I, the kids, we all watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Loved that movie. Dad loved it, so I had to love it as a child. He wouldn't give us a choice. Hey, we're going to watch what I wanted to watch, and we would watch the hell out of that movie. So kids absolutely enjoyed it. We actually need to finish it up. We watched the first half. Probably will do that hopefully tonight. But the Blondie, the good, in this, going to start with the Oregon Ducks. As I promised, I'm going to talk about some of these games more in depth. We need to be able to just take a step back and just realize and recognize what this victory, this came to be. There were so many factors stacked up against Oregon. Them even going to Columbus and being competitive would have been a lot, but to come out of there with a victory, I can't even find the words. This is what was against them. First of all, history. They were 0-9. Entering this matchup on Show Me Saturday, they were 0-9 all-time against Ohio State. And the body clock. The body clock, which all of you have taken probably a good distance airplane ride. We all know about jet lag and what it does to us. The bodies. For the Oregon Ducks, it was a noon kickoff, Columbus time, so 9 a.m. to their body clocks back in Eugene, Oregon on the West Coast. So for them to get up at 9 a.m. to be ready to play this game, that is a huge, huge absolute disadvantage for them that they overcame. Another thing, 102,000 people were on hand in the Horseshoe in Columbus. Absolutely raucous, just out of control, off the hook kind of crowd, because remember, this is in the Big Ten footprint. There were not fans in the stands last year. This was the first time that these passionate, hardcore Ohio State fans, and they are a very proud, fanatical fan base, was the first time they could cheer and enjoy their Buckeyes in person for almost 2 calendar years. And to do it against a Pac-12 opponent, highly ranked, that has been labeled as, by most people, preseason to win the Pac-12, for that to be the return game for fans, off the hook, off the charts, another huge obstacle that was against the Ducks. And Ohio State, home field, not just with the fans, but also they were a 15-point favorite at home, probably due to those fans being with them, making it an absolute tunnel against Oregon. And the last big hurdle that the Ducks had to jump or deal with was their best player, not just defensive player, their best player, Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be a top 5, if not a top 3 draft pick. He is not just the best player on their team, he is the best defensive player probably in the entire nation. He hurt himself, he tweaked an ankle in week 1, missed the second half of that game against Fresno State, did not play at the Horseshoe on Saturday. They still did enough defensively to beat Ohio State without their best player. And also, to add icing on the cake, their second best defensive player, a 5-star linebacker, was out due to injury as well. Their 2 best defensive players against, hands down, what I believe is the best offense in the nation, still were able to hold them in check enough to win. I mean, we have to just give Oregon so much props for this victory. I mean, what it means for their program, but especially for the Pac-12. I mean, this is a huge win. I mean, how this resonates the rest of the season, it cannot be measured right now on any scale. But, yeah, what a great game. I mean, the Ohio State defense continues to be like a sieve. I mean, they can't get people off the field. I mean, Oregon didn't really mask what they were going to do. They did it the entire game, attack the perimeter on the outside against the Ohio State defense. They could not adjust. They could not keep up with their speed. But not just that, that's what people think, that the Pac-12, the speed, they're not physical, they're cream puffs. This Oregon team absolutely dominated in the trenches on both sides of the ball. The Ohio State defense, which is full of 4 and 5 stars. I mean, they are riches among riches. Their defense, they did not record a single sack and only got 1 tackle for a loss all day against the Oregon offense. I mean, just to be slapped around and that on the trenches was a huge surprise. I mean, this Oregon team is fast, but they are physical. They are built like an SEC squad, which is where their head coach, Mario Cristobal, got most of his experience under Alabama and Coach Nick Saban. Maybe you might have heard of him. The GOAT, greatest of all time. So kudos to Oregon, absolutely the good. Now the other good, let me get a quick little swig here, is the black and gold of I-O-W-A. Iowa is the other blondie that I wanted to talk about today, the other good. Dominated in-state rival number 9, Iowa State, in Ames. Huge, high-profile, not really necessarily winner-take-all, not a conference game, but high-profile game. College game day was there. This was Iowa State's moment. The expectations that are on them this year, how good they should be and how good they can be. Ranked number 9 preseason, highest ranking ever. The first time these two teams, Iowa State, had ever met, both being ranked. This was their moment. This game was all about Iowa State, but Iowa very quickly made it all about them. I mentioned 6 straight wins now against the Cyclones in the Cy-Hawk game. Iowa, I mean, they have now won 8 straight games dating back to last year. Playing hot. This is a very good team, ladies and gentlemen. You, the family, the black and gold family, you know this. We are going to root for our black and golds until the end of time, both Iowa and Missouri. But this is a very good Iowa football squad. I am so very excited and pleased with what I've seen, but I am not drinking the Kool-Aid yet. There's a lot of football to be played, but there is reason to be celebrating and to be absolutely enthralled in Iowa football right now. Defense absolutely suffocated Iowa State. This is not a bunch of scrubs. I shared with you during, I believe, episode 3, my predictions, the personnel that Iowa State had back. I mean, these aren't scrubs. These are all conference type guys, all American type cats and boys. Iowa absolutely suffocated them. Final score was 27-17. The streak, the Iowa streak, is now 24 for 24. 24 straight games allowing opponents 24 points or less. That covers 3 seasons because of last year's truncated season during the COVID. 3 seasons now. That stat is absolutely unheard of. The next closest is Marshall. I believe their streak is now up to 11 games. I know some of you might say, well, who does Iowa play? They're not playing, vaunted offenses. I don't want to hear any of that. This is still Division I football. And I could say Alabama, defensive juggernaut. I get that. They gave up 14 points to Mercer on Saturday, okay? Come on. I don't care. You can't say that argument of, oh, they're not in this conference or that conference. They're not in the East Division. They're not playing Ohio State every year. That's BS. I mean, that's absolute bantha fodder, okay? I'm not going to hear that. 24 games. That is phenomenal. It's hard for me to describe in words how impressive that streak is for the Iowa defense. They now have 6 interceptions, 3 each game, which, do I expect that to continue? That would be unworldly for the Iowa defense, and that's not going to continue. But these are 2 All-American type quarterbacks they have picked off 3 times each. Michael Penix Jr. and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, remember, was the returning Big 12 quarterback of the year last year, not Spencer Rattler. And Michael Penix was first team, the second selection for all Big 10 quarterback last year. He wasn't selection 1 of 1 because of a guy you might have heard of named Justin Fields. These aren't scrubs. The Iowa defense is legitimately that good. Their back 7 is the heartbeat of this team. And teams who face this Iowa defense, you're going to have to pack a lunch and pack heavily. You are going to earn your points. This Iowa defense is not going to beat themselves this year. And I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated. They probably will get a loss or 2. But it is going to be difficult to score on this Iowa defense. It is. And right now, I will say, after 2 weeks, they are one of, if not the best defense in the nation. And they are. I don't care. Georgia fans are saying, come on. But I gave Georgia your love. You absolutely shut down Clemson, and you beat down UAB during week 2. I think you actually shut them out, I believe. So yes, elite. But the Iowa defense is right there. They're not full of 4 and 5 stars. The way they're scheming, the way they are rallying to the ball, especially on the back 7, it is going to be tough to score on them. And I'm just so excited, but hopefully I don't jinx it. But they do need to get some praise and some attention to them. That's why I'm doing this. If I was not even an Iowa fan, I would absolutely be talking about this defense right here and now with you for how good they are playing, and they need to be acknowledged. Offense for Iowa, I still have some concerns. They need to be a little bit more productive. Spencer Petras, his numbers, very pedestrian. But the big thing that Spencer Petras isn't doing through 2 games, it's only been a 2-game sample size, he's not turning the ball over. 0 picks through 2 games. So that might be enough. The way this defense is going to play is maybe the offense just needs to not make mistakes. Don't put us in bad situations. Get some points when you can, but don't do anything outside of yourself. I still have issues with Spencer's pocket awareness. He took 4 big sacks on Saturday, again in this game, 2 that absolutely took them out of field goal range. Another one they did result. Another one, actually no, the 2 that they ended up having to punt on. The other 2 they did long field goal attempts. One was a bad snap, and the other they did convert. But he needs to sometimes just throw the ball away. Don't be a hero, Spencer. We don't need a hero. We don't need another hero. We don't. Like Tina said, if there's not a play, throw it away. But I can't fault the guy. He seems to me, maybe he's just that much of a gamer. He wants to make every big play. I can't fault him for that. But Spencer, if it's not there, don't hurt your team. Throw the ball away. Rely on, your defense and your special teams. Don't put us in a bad situation, and this could be a potentially very special season for Iowa. Right now I've seen, and I'm going to shut this down right now, that some people are already saying Iowa is the best team in the Big Ten. They're better than Ohio State. That is absolute folly. Bantha fodder once again. They are not. They need to prove it. Ohio State's offense, there is no comparison to especially anybody else in the Big Ten. But I will say this. This Ohio State team does not put the fear into me that Ohio State teams have the last 2 decades. They have their absolute weaknesses. Their defense. So if Iowa does find themselves in the position to win the West, play Ohio State, and maybe Ohio State has made some improvements on defense or maybe none at all, this Iowa team could absolutely hang with Ohio State. Right now, there's no doubt in my mind. Could they beat them? I'm not willing to go on record to say that, but this is definitely more of an even matchup if it ends up being Iowa versus Ohio State, or even a team like Wisconsin. I mean, this Ohio State team is not the same old Ohio State squad through 2 weeks, but they have time to fix it. We'll see what they can do. The other thing I need to bring up about this game, and maybe I should do this during the Tuco part of this segment, but I'm going to say it now. Actually, before that, I also need to give props to Iowa's special teams. And this is another reason why they are going to be able to compete with anybody in the nation this year. Right now, the defense is absolutely the best unit on this Iowa team, but the best player, the MVP, is the punter from down under, Tory Taylor, a native of Melbourne, Australia. He's the returning Big Ten punter of the year. He is absolutely killing it for the Iowa special teams. Listen to these numbers. He had, 8 punts for a total of 409 yards, a 51-yard average, a long of 69, and 3 downed inside the Iowa State 20. And one of those probably would have been about another 10 or 15 yards longer. It took a very awkward bounce right near an Iowa State's player's foot. So Iowa believed maybe that player might have touched it and might have caromed off of it. At that point, it was rolling. They got on the ball right away. By the way it was bouncing, probably another 10, 15 yards. So the reason why this is so big time for Iowa is this is what I've always believed about punting. And certain teams rely on this so much more than others, no more than probably the Iowa Hawkeyes, just like their tight end play. If they don't have good tight end play or punting, Iowa's at a huge disadvantage for how they scheme. I've always said this, and this is what I believe, and you can disagree with me on comments if you like, but punting is an extension of defense. When you're punter, that is the first play in any defensive series. And when we have a punter like Tory Taylor, who can do that consistently within the 20, those kind of yards, 51-yard average, 409 yards on 8 punts. If he can continue that this season, which I actually think he can, really depends a lot on the elements. Also, how's the snap? You always could have that potential gaff of a long snap or wind, rain, snow. But that is a huge first play for their defense because that sets the tone for what is the offense going to do and what can we respond with as a defense. So huge. He has absolutely been the MVP of the Iowa team, their punter, Tory Taylor. So keep it up, the punter from down under. Now, what I was going to say, this has to be thought of a little bit and said. And I'm sure he has faced the music a little bit, and I'm sure he has maybe already answered this tough question. You all know how high I am on Coach Matt Campbell, the Iowa State coach. I did forecast during Crystal Ball predictions, episode 2, that I believe he is going to be the next coach at Michigan next season. But he will be at some high caliber blue blood program, maybe even a USC now that Clay Helton's gone, or in the NFL. I am so high on this coach, but I have to call him out when I can. And this is what I do, is with 12 minutes to go, it was a 27-10 game. So absolutely, Iowa State still had time to mount a rally. And for those of you who follow Iowa football, I know a lot of you don't, 27-10, the way you're playing at a high level defensively, the defense forced 4 turnovers. One of those was a scoop 6 down near and deep inside the 10, deep inside the red zone of Iowa State's. Is when you're up big like that, late in the game, Iowa's going to play to their strengths. They're going to try to run the ball out, and they're going to tell their defense, we don't mind giving up some yardage, but don't give up the big play. Keep everything in front of you. We'll just run this out. Let's pack up and go home. So with 12 minutes left, still a game, Coach Matt Campbell decides to give the hook. He pulls Brock Purdy from the game, and Brock Purdy never returns. First series, actually the second series that the backup's in, Iowa State drives the field and scores a touchdown. So now 27-17. Sideline reports never said either way if he was potentially injured. They said they saw him getting a little rub down on his thigh, so maybe a potential cramp, but nothing was made official. Now, I don't know the situation. I don't have any inside source inside the Iowa State program or on the sidelines. I don't know what was going on. I am just going to assume based on what I saw, based on the optics. And this kind of a high caliber game, which absolutely was more important for Iowa State than Iowa. Iowa, I wanted them to win, but I picked Iowa State. But the first 2 games of the year, it was so much more important for them to open up with a victory like they did against Indiana because it's a conference game. So this game absolutely meant more to Iowa State than Iowa. That with 12 minutes to go, unless your quarterback is injured or he comes to you and says, Coach, I'm just not there mentally, I'm done, physically I can't go, I'm out, he has to be on the field. Yes, he threw 3 picks, but only really one was on him. One was slipped right through a tight end's hands, right into the Iowa linebacker's hands. Another was a tip ball at the line of scrimmage. Matt Hankins came down with it. The other was a one-on-one heave that Matt Hankins made a play on this ball as well, tipped it to himself, and then came down with it. Because you do at some point have to take those one-on-one deep tries against a defense, and that wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. It was basically like a long punt. So only really one of those you could say was on Brock Purdy. The fourth turnover, Breece Hall, it was knocked out of his hands. Iowa scooping 6, as I mentioned. But it was a clean handoff between Purdy to Breece Hall. So in this kind of a caliber game, Brock Purdy has to be on the field unless, like I said, he has checked out or is hurt. If that's the case, you want to protect him. If he comes to you and says, Coach, I'm just not physically there, I'm done, I'm throwing the towel in, then yes, obviously as a coach, you don't go public with that. But you can still say he's cramping or he's hurt. Do something. But optically, this is what it looks like to me. If that's not the circumstances, Matt Campbell, I'm sorry, but I think you quit on your team. By pulling him, there's no way he's going to be able to re-enter a game like that after that kind of a blow when you've sent that kind of a message. That potentially, Matt Campbell, you may have quit on your team by pulling the plug too early on Brock Purdy. So they score, it's 27-17, they get the ball back, they're driving, and there's under a minute to go, 35 seconds. They opt to take a field goal attempt, which was the right call. They didn't have any timeouts. A field goal makes it a touchdown game. It's 27-20 with a pending onside kick. Didn't matter. The field goal was missed. Iowa wins. But this was tough. This was tough for me, and I do not understand why this would take place unless it's one of those circumstances. So Matt Campbell, I guess we're never going to know. But potentially maybe quit on your team. And that's all I have to say about that. So that is the good for week 2. Let's move on to the Angel Eyes, the bad. And I had to adjust this late last night. Originally, I had 2 teams that I want to discuss, but I'm going to discuss only one during the Angel Eyes, the bad. That is Florida State. Already mentioned, you lost to Jacksonville State on Saturday night, 20-17. This is the first loss in your storied program's history to an FCS foe. Jacksonville State scored on, I'm not going to call it a Hail Mary. It was more of a Hail Mary set play. The receiver caught it at about the 15-yard line, made a couple tacklers miss, and they scored the winning touchdown at the gun. Time expire, victory, game, blouses. I did not see this coming. I just believe within that locker room, that program still has a culture issue that needs to be addressed and fixed before progress can be made. And I am pulling for Mike Norvell. He's a good coach. I think he was the right hire. But before they can move ahead, they have to move a little backwards. I think there is just a sour culture still there that was left when Jimbo Fisher departed in the middle of the night, basically. And I that's no secret. I mean, I think Jimbo Fisher is an excellent coach, but is he worth the amount of money he's being paid at Texas A&M? No. I mean, he has a national title. I get that. But basically, when he knew he was leaving Florida State, he just stopped recruiting. That is job abandonment. And his philosophy, I think his overall expectation for his players were, hey, just keep yourself eligible. I don't care about C's and D's. D's get degrees, just like C's do. And just stay out of trouble with the law to an extent. So I think the culture that was left there was never fixed with Willie Taggart, who was chased out of Florida State after 2 seasons. And now Mike Norvell is there picking up the pieces still. So Florida State, man, what a absolute story that was week 1, like I said, with Mackenzie Milton. I want this team to be relevant again, just like I want Nebraska to be relevant again. These teams who have a pedigree, who are historically blue bloods, they need to get better and be back. So that is the bad. I mean, just an awful, awful loss for Florida State. They're now 0-2. They're definitely the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from week 1 to 2. Now the ugly, the Tuco. Last part of this segment, I'm going to start with USC. And I did have them on the bad up until I heard the news about Clay Helton's dismissal. They lose at home to Stanford as a 17-point favorite, 42-28, and they absolutely got pummeled and punished by the Cardinal at home to the tune of 9. They committed 9 penalties for 111 yards of penalties, 4 for 14 on third downs. Their offense never had a shot. We're never in this game. Boos were raining down during the third quarter and after, to the team, to the coaching staff. It was not going to end pretty. And quite frankly, it was never going to end pretty at USC. I don't think he's been there 7 years, and I don't think anyone has ever bought completely into Clay Helton as the coach. Yeah, had a very impressive Rose Bowl victory against Penn State with Sam Darnold. But after that, every year we would only hear, is he going to stay or is he going to go? Should I stay or should I go now? That's all we'd hear. Last couple seasons especially, he's going to go, he's going to go. They're going to fire him. No, they're going to bring him back. And over again. USC just needs a complete rewind and retooling. Currently, they're trying the air raid at USC. You are not an air raid school. The Pac-12 needs you to be relevant. I mean, they're one of those programs that need and can and should be a power player. The fans there aren't going to stand for this any longer. Quite frankly, they should want some results. They should want this team to be a national contender. USC has 11 national titles, 6 Heisman Trophy winners, and they are a complete afterthought right now in the Pac-12. Absolutely ugly. And hopefully they get their next coaching hire right. I mean, this is not an air raid school. You need to be physical, control the line of scrimmage. Old USC teams, what did they do? They'd have Marcus Allen, O.J. Simpson, Reggie Bush, Lindale White, Charles White running right at you behind those offensive and defensive linemen who are all basically in the NFL. I mean, the USC championship run of the late 90s, early 2000s, those guys on the O-line and D-line are all drafted. They were in the NFL. They're in the pros. Be physical. Abandon this air raid. It is done. It is over with. Go back to USC power football. Get it done. It is working. Look at Oregon and look at your crosstown rival, UCLA, who is absolutely pummeling people on the lines of scrimmage. That is absolutely ugly, and I went from bad to ugly because I highly disagree with removing him now. He needed to be removed. But doing it after week 2, it's absolutely embarrassing. This is an awful look for the athletic department and the president, chancellor, and the upper echelon at USC. To let a guy go after week 2, I can't even comprehend it. I absolutely disagree. It makes you look pathetic. So that's why it is ugly, an ugly look, and hopefully they can get it right from here out. And Clay Helton, maybe you should feel maybe blessed. Like, okay, my time here is over, thank goodness. I no longer am teetering back and forth between staying and going. So USC, one of the uglies, one of the Tucos. Next one is Texas. Hook 'em horns. Texas is not back. Wild fan base, you want to be relevant. I believe you will be. And this is no shot against the program. Texas has a great program, but they are not where people want them to be. And we need to be careful not to suffocate this program. They have lots of work to do. This past Saturday night in Fayetteville against Arkansas got absolutely run over. It looked like high school versus pros. This stat, listen, Arkansas rushed for 333 yards, a clip, an average of 7.1 yards per rush. Now compare that to the Texas total offense was 256 total yards for Texas, when Arkansas had 333 on the ground alone. What were you doing? Steve Sarkisian, I said, episode 1, I was not, and I'm still not sold on this hire. To me, it's like Tom Herman 2.0. Offense is not the problem for Texas. They averaged over 40 points last season. Let me get a quick swig. But defensively, they could not stop anybody. That is what's going on right now. And you bring in Steve Sarkisian, an offensive guru. How is that going to help the status of your program? The defense is weak, needs to be addressed now, and maybe there's a culture issue there as well, just like Florida State at Texas, because I don't know how to fix this. And if they're so concerned, excited about going to the SEC, maybe this was a little foreshadowing of things to come. They need to address this immediately, or they will be an afterthought in the SEC, kind of what they are right now in the Big 12. So yeah, Texas is not back, and I get it. It was a flashy hire. They won the press conference. They won signing day. I mean, there's Steve Sarkisian. He's in the kitchen. He's getting his soup together. A little bit of Devonta Smith. A little bit of Najee Harris. Work in a little bit of offensive line that are filled with pros. A little pinch of that. And now the quarterback is now starting at the NFL level as well. I mean, who can't put that together when you have those pieces in front of you from an offensive perspective? I don't know, Texas. I don't know. You're going to have to show me a little bit more. So they are the second ugly Tuco of this segment. Well, folks, that's it. I know I went a little bit long this week, but I did give you a warning. I had to give a little respect and credit where credit is due to the Iowa Hawkeyes, my black and gold, our black and gold. Once again, feel free to let me know how I'm doing. Leave some comments, leave some questions. If there's something you'd like me to bring up on air or debate, I'd be more than happy. Like, share, subscribe. The Week 3 preview show should be out Thursday afternoon at the latest, Friday morning. We'll have to wait and see. Subscribe to get the notification. And I always look forward. I'm counting down the days till Week 3. But until then, thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the week. Take care of yourself. I'll see you later this week. And thank you for joining the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye then.